The power of magic. There's a bit of an irony here. Where power is sourced from. Now, the paradox, I think many women are experiencing is the power of the feminine is unseen. So, if we know that this is a world of spirit and a world of energy, and we know that women are designed energetically and anatomically to be more sensitive to the subtle realms, can you blame a gal for being inclined to dabble in unseen forces? Now, what's ironic here is a couple of things. First is, if you are so powerful with the unseen realm, why do you need the material realm to control it? Does that seem a little backwards? If the premise is it starts energetically and then it expresses physically, if someone is moved by the spirit within them, because that needs to be checked, right? It's not that someone is acting out and that's the cause of everyone else's experience or their own demise. No, there is a spirit animating them. There's a spirit emitting from them. There is an organizing principle that is impacting their speech, that is influencing their actions, that is compelling them to move a certain way. If we look at it as the strict dichotomy, it's God or the devil. What moves someone? What's the spirit animating them? But it's not always that simple, right? Things are nuanced, it's complex. So it branches off into some other things. Perhaps fear is what is the organizing principle for someone's actions and behaviors and speech and how they relate to others. And that you can have empathy for, right? So it's not totally and completely maleficent. In some cases, it may be natural. In some cases, it may be warranted. Someone being moved by the feeling or desire for security, there's validity in that. We all want a sense of security. And as relational beings, we sense security by other people in our surroundings, other relationships we have. But if that sense of security gets distorted, and now we're micromanaging people, now we're emotionally manipulating people, now we're guilt tripping people, right? So it gets layered. But my point is, what if the cause and effect is not actually the cause and effect? What if someone going off on their partner is not actually the cause? What if their insecurity is the cause and the going off and yelling is the effect? What if a man buying flowers for his partner is not the cause? What if he's inspired by his sweetness, by her sweetness, and then feels romantic and purchasing the flowers becomes the effect? What if what we need to pay attention to is a little further upstream? Because there's an irony in going to magic for a sense of power for several reasons. The first is if it starts energetically and then it's expressed and emitted physically, why would you go to the physical realm for rituals and symbols and objects to then make something energetic and then physical again? It's like you're going upstream. Why not just change the force that emits physically? The other ironic thing is there's a group of people that pay witches, warlocks, magicians, and then they delegate their source of power to someone else's practice, someone else's craft, someone else's spell work. And then supposedly they receive fame and fortune and favorable outcomes. But the fame and the fortune isn't from the spirit of recognition or illumination. It's from a material manipulation. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, I sure have. If you begin to source your power from the material realm, you get the rug pulled from you every time. There's a way God balances these things. There's a checks and balance system. So it's like a guise. People think that they're being clever or sophisticated because they are working with energy or because they are going to someone who knows the crafts of energy to then change the physical realm. But the irony is you're focusing on the physical realm to then change the physical realm. And I'm telling you, I don't know if that's the right cause and effect. And have you noticed the effect, the outcome? There's a distortion. Doesn't quite unfold or present how you intended, how you wanted. There's a hook. There's fine print. There is a loss for a gain. Why do you think that is? What could that be about? Another thing interesting, I've heard women online mention a couple of times when they practice magic that they have to give something before they can get something. There's a trade. And some see that as respectable. But to me, they're out of the stream. They're out of the life wave. They're out of God's channel. Because when I want to understand God, when I have questions about the nature of God, do you know where I'm always led to? Nature. It's my premise that nature is God's hand untouched. really. And so when I am looking at the divine qualities in this physical realm, I'm always looking at nature. And there's something about nature. There is a reciprocity. There is natural relationship in right order. There is health and wealth and fertility and opulence and abundance in nature when things are properly positioned and in good health. Humans have changed the way we relate to one another. Our relationships are now much more transactional, much more carrot stick, much more you give and then I will give. So you can take and then I can take. I scratch your back so you scratch mine. There's less of this like organic, natural placement and timing and cycles. So it's interesting when I look at magic and when I hear of women saying you have to give something before you get something. I don't think they realize they're under the realm of transaction, even if they thank the ancestors, even if they thank the earth, even if they do it beautifully. They're operating under a conditional frame. When you work with God, it's unconditional, it's bountiful. When you're working with God, it's the giving that feels good. When you are interacting with people and opportunities and wealth and business and friends and love, the giving to the other is what fills you. It's not what you extract from them. It's not what you get from them. It's not what they give you. It's not about keeping score. In the world of magic, when you're tracking, giving, and taking, and then when something doesn't last and you have to keep giving to get it, you're out of the life stream, you're out of the life wave, you're not in the garden. Because in the garden, in nature, life propagates itself. Life is always giving more life. It's fertile. It does so naturally. The growth and the bounty is part of the design. Perhaps there is a false premise with magic and giving and taking, and what is really the cause and what is really the effect. If one thinks the cause is the spell or the ritual or the ceremony, and then the effect is money, fame, women, men, a car, it's manufactured. Why is it manufactured? Because in this practice, there is a rule that's broken. With severe consequence. There's all sorts of declarations and regulations and rules that society and religion has written for all of us to follow, the sins for us to avoid. But I can boil it down to one thing. You are not allowed to infringe on anyone's free will. If you interfere with someone else's will, there is certainly a price to pay. And Mother Nature will check you every time. God is going to check you every time. And there's a subtlety in magic can't help but notice with the words and the spells and the intentions and even the visualizations, and even just everyday women calling in their husband. There's something with the mind, the focusing, the words, where you are penetrating in this reality your will. And when you are inserting and focusing your will outside of nature's order, outside of the organizing principle of God, there's going to be some bumps in the road. And in fact, a lot of the time, people disrupt the process of it. People interfere in their own way with what was already naturally unfolding. Some people were on their way to being a champion. Some people were on their way for being a #1 hit. Some people were on their way to the love of their life. And they focus their will. And what happens? That outcome was out of the life stream, outside of nature's order, because that outcome had a natural progression. It had a life of its own. The man was going to be your husband, but he had some emotional debris he was clearing. He had a point down the road where he would had an opportunity to make more money. He was on a progression. He was the growing fruit that was not ready to harvest, but you willed him in too soon. So you have who you were meant to be with, but there's hooks, there's hitches. It's not as juicy, it's not as bountiful as it could have been because you interfered with the life of it. You interfered with its natural progression. And you call it magic and spell work because you're this powerful authority. Beauty is the highest order. Truth is the true authority. When I say beauty is the highest order, this is what I mean. We look out to nature, God's hand untouched. What do we see outside? The biodiversity of how beautiful flowers and oceans and mountains and species of birds are. Why are those things so beautiful? Because they're in good health. Why are they in good health? Because they are in right relation with the environment, with the ecosystem, with the larger relationships that propagate, that give to the tree. And then the tree loses the leaves and it mulches the trunk and it absorbs nutrients and water in the soil below. There is a cycle and a cyclical aspect. And when those things are healthy and beautiful, they've gone through their full life cycle, their full process. So what I'm saying is you could have had a beautiful marriage. You could have had a beautiful #1 song. You could have had a beautiful experience of fame and glory. And do you know what happens? Do you know what happens when you allow something its full life cycle with God's rhythms, with nature cycles? You don't have to manage it. The fame comes naturally. The love has its oomph, its beauty, its connection organically. You don't have to manage. You don't have to cross check. You don't have to keep securing what you've gotten. Because when you take something out of its proper development, when a baby has not reached its full term, there is a level that you have to tend and secure its life. that you would not even have to do if you just allowed it to take its full cycle. Magic in the way that it is done. It interferes with life. It interferes with nature's rhythm. It interferes with the order of beauty, which is simply the systems of health, which is simply the sequence and the phases and the cycles of life that endures and propagates and fertilizes itself. Now, I hold an unorthodox opinion where I don't think I get rid of my will for God's will. I see it a little differently. I see God's will as a metronome, this beat in the background of my life. And my will catches a rhythm with it. And your will is also operating on the same tempo, and his will and her will. And it's like we all create this beautiful orchestra. Like some people play the flute, others the violin, someone singing, I'm dancing, but we're all on the same tempo of God's will, so we recognize it, but we keep this individual essence. I think you harmonize your will with God's will. I don't think you get rid of it completely. So in nature, this relationship, I am harmonizing with the cycles, with the rhythms. In magic, you're in dissonance. You're not in its harmonics. And so you manipulate and you take and you put things in position, in configuration, in triangulation, and you put your will, you put your intention into material things, thinking that you're changing the energy, and then you're getting some sort of lively benefit from this reality, this plane. Joke is on you. That's not how it works. And you think you're so powerful. And reality checks you every time. Mother Nature is going to check you every time. Because there is a rhythm. There is an unfolding. There is a path of great prosperity and bounty for all of you. But you're interfering. And when you're out of the stream, see it like a river. Things become increasingly more drastic for you to keep it together and for you to maintain it. Because it's not natural. It's not in its natural order. It doesn't have the life of its own. And funny enough, the demonic realm, do you know what its nature is? Parasitic. It has to take the life of something else. So if you have a desire, you have an outcome, you have a reality, you want money, you want man, you want recognition, you want a family. Tread carefully. But when you're in tune with nature, with God, there's nothing to worry about. It's already unfolding. You're just in the life cycle that you need as your individual. Life pertains to you. That's between you and God, not between you and someone else, not between you and a spell. take a glance at what is the true authority here. Are you the authority because you do spell work to change reality? Or is your desire to even cast a spell in the first place a lack or insecurity? And that is the sneaky authority that's running your life. Because as I mentioned, the spell isn't the cause, it's the effect.